Hello, everyone. It's a man of Manethrin here, coming to you with another video. And I have my pipe thumbed full of tobacco, and I'm ready to go. So, the discussion that I wanted to have today on this particular video comes off of an article that was put out by winteriscoming.net. 5 ways the Wheel of Time improved the books and 5 ways it failed them. And my focus here is only on one thing in that article. Probably because that's as far as I've got so far. But I don't want to give this article too much more attention than what it already has thrown out there as a shill site. But the very first thing that it comes across and says as an improvement for the show over the books is that Lan and Nynaeve's relationship makes more sense. So immediately I know that this is absolute nonsense, because it doesn't make sense how the show portrays their relationship, much less any relationship. So to lead this off, I'll let you know when we get there, folks, there's going to be some book spoilers in this video. And I'll try to point it out when we get there. I'm going to try and condense them all into a section. Hopefully I do that just fine. That will allow you to skip that section and then just go straight to the conclusion. As for show spoilers, who cares? You can't spoil milk any further when it looks like cottage cheese already. So I'm not worried about show spoilers. If you are and I spoil it for you, you've been warned. So let's talk about Wheel of Time's true power couple. And that would be Lan Mandragoran and Nynaeve Almera. And when I say power couple, I mean it. In my opinion, there are no two people in the entire series that are together and that are more integral to the progression of Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time. Lan and Nynaeve are it. The TV show, what I call Rafe's Spokes of Woke, absolutely trashes all relationships. Because to those wokies, relationships are selfish. They're not personal. They're really rooted in the sexualization of one another for one's own personal use, not for the betterment of the other individual. Chastity is a punchline in the show. Self-respect is bastardized into a definition of being earned by the notches that you can put on your bedpost rather than by self-control and standing firm in one's convictions. In the show and in general pop culture, agency in relationships are anchored on sex rather than choice and personal desire and growing with one another. That's the purpose of relationships, but not in this show. In this show, let's go ahead and have Rand and Egwene having at each other after mom and pop's bars closed and ignore the fact that we've got to clean the place. You know, it's ridiculous stuff. So, one of the more common criticisms that I've heard in the books um, is that Robert Jordan doesn't really know how to write relationships, and that they just tend to be there all of a sudden, without any instigation, and it commonly gets called insta love. Um, and to an extent, I can see that point. Um, Relationships between men and women certainly weren't something that he really focused in the show for the most part. They played roles as it was fitting for the story, but he wasn't focusing on relationships like that. It wasn't going to be some CW love fest for Robert Jordan. So I think that the relationships, they may happen quickly, but I think Robert Jordan quite possibly chose to address relationships off page rather than on page many times. And I understand that, and I'm all right with that, considering that, again, the main thrust of the story is surrounding action and events, not the romance. But why Lan and Nynaeve's relationship is important, perhaps more than any other, to the crucial position of Robert Jordan's world building, is a real question. Why is it? So let's dive in. Let's think about Lan Mandragoran's perspective on Nynaeve. Lan believed that he was the last man that Nynaeve should ever love. It was a strong conviction of his. He cared for her like he had cared for nobody else in his life, and desired that that be reciprocated. Lan's problem comes in because he can't forsake his duty. He is a, a responsible warrior and leader. He could not forsake his own war against the shadow as the last king of Malkiri. This commitment grieved him greatly because he felt that all that he could offer to Nynaeve at that point were widow's clothes, because he felt at some point he was going to have to go to his death, and he was going to do that without being a king on a throne, and couldn't offer her anything beyond that. But his greatest desire for her was safety and happiness. Now let's look at Nynaeve's perspective on Lan. She longed for Lan very deeply. At one point, they are separated for books in the story. And there was a constant drawing of her attention to Lan and her desire to be with him and to be alone with him for the rest of her life. And this is actually what part of her animosity as well towards Moiraine was. It wasn't just the fact, like initially it was the fact that she took the boys and Egwene out of Emond's Field without any permission, without any warning. That was the initial thing. But when she grew feelings for Lan, that warder bond provided her with some animosity to further her disdain for Moiraine, because she understood Lan's sense of duty. She understood it very well, but it led to an intense jealousy. Now, both Lan and Nynaeve are driven by their intense personal duties. Lan for his nation and for Moraine, and Nynaeve for her Emond's Field kin and also for her responsibilities as a healer. She desired to be this great healer when she found out that she had the ability to channel and the ability to really excel in that field. She wanted to heal everybody. And as a result, no two people in the Wheel of Time were more fiercely loyal to one another despite their external duties to everything else. They were dedicated to each other, and their feelings and their thoughts were always drawn to the other. So now, here we go. We're going to get into spoiler territory. So jump to this point in the video if you want to skip those spoilers, because they're rather large spoilers for the storyline, and I don't want to spoil that for you in the books if you don't want to. Of course, if you're like me, then you'll listen to them anyway, and you'll be like, oh, wow, I can't wait to get to that part. But in any case, so jump to this point, and you can skip the spoilers. So, spoilers. Nynaeve, we discover in The Eye of the World. She has a block on her ability to channel the One Power. She is what is known in the storyline as a wilder, somebody who has learned to channel and has learned to channel through the sickness that anyone who channels gets, and that they can die from if they don't learn to channel properly. And most of the time, you have to learn and be trained through that sickness. So that's why Aes Sedai were out there searching for people who could channel, because they didn't want people to die. They wanted people to be able to use the channeling ability and not get sick and die as a result of that. But Nynaeve was one of those cases where she was able to, without her understanding that she could channel, she was able to sit there and heal her, not heal herself, but work herself through that with some sort of just natural ability to solve the issue for herself. So she would channel without knowing that she was channeling. And as a result of her own personal training, this created a block for her to be able to do all the rest of the channeling that she wanted to do with proper training. So it's just kind of like with those avenues. Now, most of her channeling then came through anger and perhaps even some moments of desperate need. And the question is how did she overcome this block? And this is where the relationship comes into play. At one point, she's in the city of Ebudar, and she is attacked by one of the Forsaken, an evil woman by the name of Mogideon. And in that attack, on the boat that she was on, she was actually thrown overboard the boat and was drowning. And in the process of that, she figured, well, this is it. And she just gave herself over to death, thinking that that was the end for her. However, Lan had just been sent to Ebudar to find Nynaeve by Egwene. And he arrived at this right time, so kind of a Deus Ex Machina type of thing. But he arrived at just the right time to see this attack, see Nynaeve go into the water, and he dove in after her and saved her. So the combination of this attack and Lan's heroics allowed Nynaeve to circumvent this channeling block, and everything blossomed from there. And then, by the way, very shortly after that, Lan and Nynaeve were married following the rescue because they were both tired of not being together. So, now here come the real big arching spoilers. So, with these two now together, what did they achieve? And this is what is one of the things that is so magnificent about the relationship, their dependency on one another. Nynaeve was integral in building Lan's army as he made his way across the land and built the army of the Valkyrie. She was absolutely instrumental. He wouldn't have had an army if it weren't for her. And so when he went to war against the Shadow in the last battle, he was ready because of Nynaeve's support. Lan's role in removing the block that Nynaeve had enabled her to do so many things. One, she discovered that she was actually one of the few Aes Sedai in history that could use that could channel all five elements, all five kinds of weaves. So air, earth, fire, water, and spirit. She could use them all. And that enabled her to do some great things. With Rand, she helped cleanse the taint from Sidene, which saved countless men and countless people across society as a result of the madness that it induced. So she played an absolutely critical role in that. She also learned how to undo the weave of compulsion that was put on people by the Black Aja and by the Forsaken. She could undo that. Now, this next one, I think she did this, if I recall, before the block was removed. But I wanted to include it in the spoiler section to help also showcase Nynaeve's talent as well. She discovered how to heal a stilled or gentled person, which was believed never to have been done before, not even in the Age of Legends. And so being able to do that shows her dedication as a healer. She wanted to be able to heal absolutely everything she could, barring, minus death, because you can't heal that. But that's huge. And so Logain, was healed of this. To a lesser extent, Swan Sanche was as well. So, I mean, really, really powerful stuff. And then lastly, she was instrumental in helping Rand in the last battle, which included assisting him in sealing the hole with the Dark One's prison. So if we look back at the man-hate video that I did the other day, or the other, few videos ago, she fulfilled the role that the female side needed to be there so that they could seal the Dark One away. Oddly enough, Rand wanting to go and do this in the last battle came up with a plan that was denied by all the female Aes Sedai. And Nynaeve, being distrustful of the Aes Sedai, broke with that and went and helped Rand. Phenomenal story. So, okay, spoilers are done now. So you can join back in if you took a break. So, with those things aside, we can understand the dramatic impact of this relationship to the world of the Wheel of Time. If those things don't happen, the progress is gone. There's no it just completely ruins the cohesiveness of the story. When the spokes of woke get their grimy CW hands on this relationship and the others, the only way that they can express relationship is to have the characters get their naked on together. That's it. That's what relationships mean to them. And so by application, then it stereotypically destroys all the agency for men because for them, all the power resides in the whammon genitalia. And since it can't be beat, then the men become whipped. And how does the show, and God forbid it goes this long, bring resolution to Nynaeve's block? How would the show do that? They've already destroyed her self-respect and her natural shyness by having her give it up to Lan in episode 7 of season 1. They've stolen her agency by making this block something that she can actually work around as long as she's emotional enough, despite her complete lack of training. How do they work around that? How would she be able to achieve all these things that I mentioned in the spoilers with a block? The consummation of their relationship softened her edges. And it softened Lan's edges. It freed her to reach the peaks in channeling that were absolutely unheard of because of the relationship. And the fact that it was held off by all the events of the books, it increased not only the edge that she had and the frustration amidst the relationship that she had, but it also increased that release of her capabilities when it came time for it to happen. Without that, the only thing that they have a fix for that is that which they've already used, and it's just because she's so awesome. That's it. And if that's all that it takes, then she doesn't even need Lan. She just needs herself. What did I say earlier? It proves my point. Rafe's view of relationships is very selfish in nature. Relationships are not sacrificial to the Wokies. They are self-serving. That's why they are so temporary in society. But the beautiful thing is about Robert Jordan's portrayal of Lan and Nynaeve is that they both needed one another. They desired themselves or dedicated themselves to one another. And that this relationship had two people wholly serving each other rather than themselves. They helped each other in their duties and they helped each other with each other. It was a really fantastic relationship. And the impact of this relationship to themselves and to the Wheel of Time world was epic. The show, as usual, completely disregards that, and it misses the greater point of union, love, and dedication. It's a beautiful thing in the books, and it was destroyed in the show. It doesn't make sense in the show because it's all about hormones in the show. It's not about the story in the show. So, what do you all think? Did I get something wrong in the histories or whatever? Let me know in the comments. Drop a note in the bucket. Let me know because I'd love to have that kind of correction. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Because that's allowed here. Again, comment below and we'll see each other again. Chegar, Nivron, Taishar, Manethern.